now, Curtis, do you want to introduce Dave?
I can introduce myself. All right. Thank you, Dave.
I thought you were going to tell us a little bit more about Dave. Dave, you're up.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dave Schell. Some of you might remember me. I am a member of this group, but I haven't been to a meeting in years because I just can't make the Tuesday meeting.
The last meeting you were here.
What's that?
I think you demoed.
The last demo was the last time I was here, yeah. So
You're just graduating high school.
I was just graduating high school. So
If you demo every month, you'll be here every month?
I might be back in September, I think we're doing.
That could happen.
Yeah, Easy Wood Tools, I think. So I've been wood turning for about 10 years. It's not my full-time job, but it's slowly becoming more than just a hobby. And I've been lucky enough to work with some tool companies. I'm an Easy Wood Tools demonstrator. I'm one of 38 across the United States. So I get the privilege of getting their tools and going out to woodcraft stores and other clubs and stuff showing their tools. I used to work a lot with Saber. If you guys are familiar with Saber, they are one of the tools that we're going to talk about today. And now I'm working a lot with Cutsaw. And I'm at the point now, if you guys are on Facebook or Instagram and follow Woodturners, you may have seen ads with me in it. They've been running some ads with me in it for the past 2 months. I think they're still continuing this month. I've seen some. And they kind of like the things that I'm doing. So I figured I'd get more into it and show you guys what I do. And if you guys want to learn any more about it, hey, go ahead and try it. If you don't want to try it, don't try it. It depends. But what I'm going to talk about today is embellishing turned items. So I do a lot of bowls. I sell a lot of bowls. I sell a lot of other pieces, but I kind of get tired of making bowls. I don't know if you guys are like me, but if you make a bowl and it looks really nice, but sometimes they're like really boring too. So this is a piece of maple. It's got a little coloring in it. And I know right away that if I was going to take this to a show, this would probably be sitting on my table for a couple of shows until I actually sold it. Because I have other pieces that have figure in it, I have different colors in it, and I'm tired of taking bowls to shows and then taking them back and putting them on my shelf and trying to figure out what I'm going to do with these bowls. So it's a really nice bowl, make a really good fruit bowl, salad bowl, things like that, but it's just boring to people when they see all the other things. So one of the things you can do is you can embellish a bowl or make changes to it to kind of make it more sellable. That's one of the reasons that you would do embellishing, and we'll talk a little bit about some easy things to do. The other thing you want to do with embellishing is sometimes you just have a piece and there's just a little bit of grain you can't sand out no matter how hard you try. And even if you take it down to 40 grit and take it and you're sanding it, you just can't get out of it. So what do you do with the piece? You can either paint it, you can throw it out, put it in a fire pile, or you can try and sell it like that. Some people might buy it if it's a lower price. Or you can actually just cover up the bad part of the bowl with some embellishment. So that's what I'm going to show you on some of these pieces. This piece here, as an example, let me get over here so you guys can hear me. So this is a piece that I was playing with, and as I was turning it, there was a little bit of a bark inclusion that went a little bit too deep, and I didn't want to pop it out because I didn't like the way it looked, I think, if I popped it out. And then I noticed there was a little crack forming on this side over here, so instead of me putting all that time and effort into a bowl, I figured I would try to embellish it and add a little texturing on the outside, and then try and sell it. So I put this online, and then within 2 hours I sold it. So if otherwise I might have put this online and no one would have bought it. I might have taken it to some shows. It would have sat there. People would have seen the crack. The thing about the texturing is, if you guys can see the crack right here, when you embellish it or you put texturing around it, it kind of hides the crack. So it's not as visible. It's still visible, but it's not as visible as it was before. So it helps you cover up some of those parts of bowls that may not be, something that people would buy. There's also a little flat spot here because there was some bark here. When I pulled the bark off, it was too deep and I didn't want to make the bowl thinner or change the contour of the bowl. So I just textured it, and you can't really tell that there's a flat part here unless you take your hand around and feel it. But when you look at it on a table, you really can't tell that there's a little flat part right there. And then I tried experimenting with something new a couple nights ago. This is a piece of, I don't know what it is really. It was along the road. And I decided to try a new technique where I did a little bit of a raised outer rim, did some pixeling along the side, painted it. And then on the inside, I had a lot of grain that had really little cracks in it. Or again, it was that grain that you just can't sand out. So I figured I'd try embellishing the inside of it. And if you can see, I took it around the whole inside, right where all that grain and cracks were. So I drew a little line here, and then I just went down the whole way around. And I put this on the internet because I like to gauge what people think about it. So the worst thing you ever want to do is take a piece on the internet and ask for opinions, because everyone's got one, and you have to be ready for it. Now, I don't know what I'm going to do with this bowl. I'm probably just going to put it on my mantle. I'm not going to even take it to a show. But the intent was to find out if people liked embellishment on the inside of bowls, because you really don't see it on the inside of bowls. And it's split. 50% of the people like it, 50% of the people hate it. And the ones that hate it are the most vocal about it. So if you ever do anything like that, just be prepared for the comments that you get. I did have one person offer to buy it, so I might sell it to him just so I don't have to look at it anymore. But yeah, it was a test.
Does that mean you're in the hate it camp?
I'm not necessarily in the hate it camp. It's just that if I was buying a bowl, I don't know if I would buy a bowl with inside embellishment. But it was curious for me to make it because if other people liked it, I would make them.
How long did it take you to do the inside of the bowl? What
What
tool did you use to do that?
About 20 minutes.
That's all?
Yeah. I'll show you the tools that I use. And I used a cut saw burr for this. And my biggest thing was, am I going to be able to do it enough that they're all going to line up so I don't have like a big gap or have to squeeze them together? But when you look at it, it really doesn't matter because there's so many of them. You know, people don't focus just on one thing. But it does cover up all the miniature cracks that are on the inside, and it also does cover up a lot of the grain that I couldn't sand out. So it's kind of a neat thing. And then we'll talk a little bit later on about other ways to embellish pieces. I love spirals. I don't know why. But I like to do pieces with spirals around them, and I'll show you guys how to lay it out. I did this in the last demo I was here, but I'll do it again for the people who weren't here. So this is a piece that I just did a couple of spirals around, and then this is a piece where I did spirals the whole way around. And these are items that people really like, because it's something different. You don't see these pieces anywhere else. So if you're going to a show and you want to make your pieces stand out, if you do certain embellishment to them, they look, I wouldn't necessarily say better, but different than everyone else's pieces that are there. So people are more prone to come to your table and talk to you, pick them up, feel them, and actually you might end up with more sales on them because of that. And then you can get into even more complex pieces. This is a piece of spalted sugar maple, and it has a really deep spiral, but what I really like about it is the crispness of the edges of the spirals. And then this piece here, as an example, is a double spiral or a basket weave. So this is a piece of copper beech which is hollowed out. Let me see if you get the camera. Hollowed out the whole way. And then I did one spiral set going one way and another spiral set going the other way. And then drove myself crazy for 12 hours trying to make sure I didn't overlap in the wrong places. And then drawing them out and then putting it aside and then bringing it back and looking at it again. It's a fun piece. I don't know if I'd ever sell this piece. I don't know if I'd ever make another one. But it was a fun piece to experiment with and really test your skills and see if it's something that you want to get into a little bit later on. I would just use this for like dried flowers. That's all I would use it for. So the biggest reason I do embellishment is just because of boring grain. I don't like plain grain. I don't like just plain white wood. or plain walnut wood, I like to have different colors and different variations of grain. So when I have pieces like this, I tend not to turn wood like this, but if I have it and there's nothing else to turn and it's right in front of me, I'll turn it and then I'll do things with it. So what are the tools that you need to do embellishment? So I will show you the tools that I use. They aren't the only tools that you can use, but they're the tools that I found that work really well for me. There are other tools that are out there, but the biggest thing you need is some sort of, if you want to make it fast, some sort of rotary tool. I am in a Dremel camp because Dremels are pretty inexpensive as compared to some other ones. There are some people that do a lot of carving, power carving, that use Fordham tools. You can get those, they're a lot more expensive. I don't think they're as mobile as a Dremel. So if I want to do this in the yard, I can easily just get an extension cord and sit out in a chair and do this with a Dremel. And again, these are pretty inexpensive. What I like to recommend is if you are going to do any kind of carving with a rotary tool, and you can go to Harbor Freight, you can get the Harbor Freight version of Dremel too. But if you do anything, what you want to do is try and get the extension, the flex extension, because holding this piece is very tiring after so many minutes. But if you do a flex piece, this is like holding a pen or a pencil. So as long as you're okay with it, this is a lot more comfortable in your hands. And if you wanted to, you can actually use two hands and guide this along if your piece is secure. So we're going to show a little bit on the Dremel. And you can get these, Woodcraft has them, Amazon has them, pretty much Home Depot, Lowe's, pretty much any big store has these things. And the other important thing that you need are, in my case, I use carbide bits to turn. So there are two main companies out there that have carbide bits. These are Saber tooth bits, if you guys can pick them up. And then these are cut saw tips. So I use both. I prefer using cut saw tips over saber tooth, but I do use saber tooth in certain instances over cut saw. So saber tooth, the thing that is different between these bit companies is saber tooth has a very specific pattern of how they put the carbide tips on the tools. So if you take a look at any other tips, see if I can hold that up. You see how there's a certain pattern on those tips and it goes the whole way around? And every grit is a different color. So you have you have coarse, you have medium, you have medium fine, and you have fine. And then with cut saw, the difference is their tips are more like loaded with carbide. So there's no distinct pattern on any of them. If there is, you can't really tell there's a pattern on it. So the reason I like cut saw is when you're using these tools, I seem to get a finer finish after I'm done with it with less sanding. You will still have to sand no matter what you do. But if you hold the cut saw piece there, you'll get some lines in the piece from the tool, but you won't get as many as if you're using a saber tooth. So with saber tooth, if you keep the bit there just long enough, it'll form deep grooves based on which tip you're using. With cut saw, the grooves are still there, but they're not as deep, and they're a lot easier to sand out in my experience as compared to saber tooth. But if I'm taking a lot of wood out of a piece, I start with the saber tooth bits because the grit grabs the wood a lot easier, I think, than the cut saw bits. And it removes the wood a lot quicker than I think the cut saw bits do. But the cut saw bits are much better for refinement and like getting really close to a final sanded finish. And again, the cut saw bits also come in different grits. You have a coarse, a fine, and now they have a brand new detail kit, which are these really little small bits up here. And at the end of this, I have a promotion code for you guys. If you wanted to buy cut saw, I have a 10% off code for you guys that I'll give you if you wanted to try this. And it works online. The other thing you want to do is It's very, very helpful if you have a flat tool rest. You can buy these online. Some, I don't know if any lathes come with flat tool rests, but I found this online. You can make your own. I'm sure Barry can make his own. You just get a post and put a piece of plywood across it. You could do that as well. But I like getting the metal one. That way it doesn't flex. And it fits. This is a 1-inch that fits in almost any major lathe stock here. So we'll show you how to use the flat tool rest.
I think it's sold as a box tool rest.
Box tool rest? Yeah.
One way, basically.
Okay. And then the other thing you can get with you is if you don't want to do all of your carving on the lathe, and let's say you're like me where you have a garage or a barn that's freezing in the winter, but your basement's nice and warm. I have a Carver vise here. So this is something that you can put on your table, and then this will swivel around. So then you can put your piece, you can hold it by the tenon here, swivel it around like a regular wood carver would, and then you can use your power tools if you wanted to do that, or even do hand carving with it. And this is just a Stanley, but other people make these as well. The other thing Kutzall makes, which I really like, are these rasps. They're called rasps. They make them in different grits as well. So these are 2 half-round rasps, and these are really good to take off a lot of material or to kind of try and get things more along a straight plane, and you could do it by hand. So it's very easy. It takes a lot of material out. And again, the grit pattern on these is not a pattern. It's more just like a random grit pattern. So when you're done using it, you don't have as much sanding to do, but you still will have sanding to do. I use these a lot. You want to get yourself a flexible tape measure because you're going to be doing some measuring. You're going to be doing some layout if you want to do patterns on your pieces. If you're doing a piece like this, where you're just doing the stippling around the outside, you don't really need to measure anything. You just kind of like touch your tool and touch it 1,000 times. But if you're doing anything on the inside, if you want it to make it uniform, you want to set some lines and you want to follow the lines. But we'll talk a little bit about that when we're talking about laying out our pieces. You can also pick up an inexpensive set of carving tools, wood carving tools. Go to Woodcraft, pick up one of the intro kits, and then you can use that to embellish your bowls as well. So if you don't want to buy a Dremel, you don't want to buy all the tips, you can buy an inexpensive set of carving tools and then just hand carve some of the outside of a bowl too, and you'll get a same embellishment effect on it as well. Wood burners. If anyone is into wood burning, you could pick up some inexpensive wood burning with some different tips, and then you can draw a pattern out and you could just draw little wood burn lines all around the outside of your bowls as well, and that is a form of embellishment as well. And then sometimes just painting your bowls is a form of embellishment. So if you have a bowl like this, what you could do is just draw a couple of lines on it and then paint those lines, and then maybe paint this a different color as well. So you'll have the wood here, maybe paint these copper, maybe paint these gold, and then paint this black. And that's a form of embellishment as well, where you're not damaging or changing the wood. You're just painting over the defects or making it look different than what it was before. So let's talk a little bit about my thought process when I do embellishing of bowls. And it could be different than your thought process. That's a great thing about doing this hobby, is everyone thinks different on how you're doing things. My process is I don't want to spend an immense amount of time on embellishing, because there's only so much money people will pay for a bowl. And that's one of the big, again, if you go on the internet, there are so many different threads. You go on the AAW forum and everyone's talking about how much you charge for your bowls, how much you charge for your pieces. My advice is charge whatever you want. You're the one that's making the money. You're the one that's selling it. Charge whatever you want. I go to shows, and depending where my show is, I have different prices for the same bowl. So if I have a show closer to Philadelphia where the people are making more money, my prices are a little higher. If I go to Maytown, Pennsylvania, or Bainbridge, Pennsylvania, where people aren't making as much money, then my prices are more normal. If I'm doing it as a raffle, or if I'm doing it like a church show, my prices might even be lower than that because I just want to try and get rid of the pieces that I have. I only have so much shelf space in my house. So I like to make things and get rid of them and then make new things. So what you want to do is anytime you do embellishment, before you start the piece, think about what you want that final piece to look like. So as I did this piece, I would have really loved to think about this a little bit more. And I would have really liked to have a little bit of a raised rim on the outside. Now I already took the foot off here, so I can't really put this back on the bowl easily. And I don't really want to recarve the piece. But if I was thinking about this piece as I was making it, I probably would have left a little bit of wood around the rim so I could do something with it to make it stand out a little bit more. But I didn't. So then I have to come up with a different way of embellishing this piece. So what I'm going to do on this piece is I'm just going to do like a dot pattern the whole way around this piece. And then it's going to look something similar to this, where you'll have just a series of random indentions all along the piece. So it's more of a texture thing. So it's not really going to change the color of it, it's just going to change the texture of it. And I think that would make it more sellable when people pick it up. The other thing you want to do is don't ever wing anything when you're doing it. If you say, hey, I want to do a spiral, but you don't draw out the spiral, you're winging it. And it's not going to turn out the way you think it is. Even if you want to do like circles or you want to do like a butterfly, don't wing it unless you're like an artist. Okay, and most of us probably are not artists. But those of us that are, or those people that are, can probably wing it. But again, one slip of the tool can change that embellishment. So it's really important that you draw it out and then follow that pattern that you're doing. And then pick the right tool or the right burr and always practice on a piece of scrap wood. So if you have a big piece of wood and you're cutting it out to make a bowl blank, save some of that wood, even a small piece. So if you're using a burr, you can test it on that small piece to see how that burr reacts to that wood grain. How hard is the wood? Where's the wood grain going? You don't want to just put it on here and go, okay, let's hope for the best. And then you start doing it and your piece slips or it falls and it changes everything. Then you end up throwing it away or doing something with it, giving it to your wife for keys or something. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you how I do a very simple bump pattern. Well, I call it a bump pattern on cut saw. It's more of an indentation pattern. So we're going to take this piece. If I would have kept the foot on, I would have attached it here because it's easier to have it here and then have two hands working the piece, but we're going to wing it with just one hand. And I know I said I shouldn't wing it.
Can I just ask?
Yeah.
I've been hearing you say cut saw the entire thing, and I think it's Kutzall is the company?
Yes.
So just for clarification.
Yep. Cut saw. Yeah. I mean, people say it different, but they've never corrected me. So
I don't care how you say it. I want
Yeah.
to be able to find it on the internet.
Anyway, I care how you say it.
Well, that's because you-
You're so thoughtless, though.
I'm thoughtful.
So what we're going to do is we're going to use in this piece, I'm just going to use a big burr, a big round burr. This is going to be the fine burr. And we're going to put it in here. And I just hand tighten it because my Dremel, if anyone has Dremels, this piece wears out very quickly. So I'm going to hang my tool. I'm just going to go up. I don't use the fastest speed. I usually do like a speed or two below it. And then this is really simple. You just touch it a million times. So as I'm doing this, if you go straight on the piece, you don't get a little burn, but if you go sideways, you get a little burn. I kind of like the burn. So we're going to do a couple with burns, a couple without burns, and we'll go back and we'll kind of take a look at it. The nice thing about this is there is no pattern. You just kind of touch it and touch it and touch it and touch it and make your own patterns as you're doing it. But what you don't want to do is do like you could, if you wanted to, do one row the whole way around and then do another row the whole way around. But I think the more uniform it looks, it doesn't look as good. That's just my opinion. I like it more random. And people on the internet that have seen the pieces have mentioned that as well. They really like the randomness of the piece. So again, it doesn't take long to do. And you normally wear a dust mask, but I'm not doing it today. Can you guys see this? Would it be easier if I hold it up? And you can, when you're doing this, the longer you hold the piece, the deeper of an indentation you'll get. The lighter you hold it, the less you'll get. You do a combination of anything. It's your bowl. Do whatever you want. And then what I do is I try and hold it up to the light to see what spots I missed, and then I just go back and hit some spots that I missed. So that's an example of using like a large round burr, but you can also use other ones. They make a whole bunch of different ones.
Do you ever paint or dye the wood before you do that?
You could. So there's two things you can do. You can paint it afterwards, and then it will cover all the like burn marks if you didn't like the burn marks. Or if you paint it beforehand, then this will take the paint away. Yep. So then it provides a relief from the paint. If you get like a pointy burr, then what you could do on the same piece, if you didn't like this is why you get scrap wood, so you can figure out which one you want to do. You can go in sideways and you can do these. And just randomize it and do whatever you want. And these look like little bug holes or bug paths, if you like that kind of look. A lot of people will paint over and then do this after you paint it, and then it shows the wood underneath the paint. Or if you want, you can go along the edge. And you could just do a little pattern along the edge. And maybe that is your embellishment, is just doing something really simple like that. You could do it at the base. You know, it's up to you how you want to make your bowls look. But the really cool thing is there's nothing right or wrong about anything that you do. people will do embellishment all sorts of different ways. And if you look at the AAW magazine, you'll see embellishment all throughout that magazine. People are doing it all the time, different ways, and you can learn from some of that. Look at one of the pieces, don't copy it, but use it as an inspiration, okay? And then if they have black paint, what would it look like with red paint? One people on the internet said I picked the wrong paint color for that. They didn't like gray. It should have been red. I'm like, all right, well, whatever.
You buy it, you can paint it whatever color you want.
Yeah, buy whatever you want. Do the dimples. So one person didn't like, they didn't like the embellishment on this piece because if you look really closely, the tool that I used left a little nipple on the inside. I kind of like it. It's different. It's not a perfectly round. It's like a little thing with a dimple on the inside. He hated that. And he made sure he was, very vocal about it. I like it. I'm going to keep it, And again, pick any tool that you want. You can do a combination of things. You can divide your bowl up into sections. You don't actually have to do the entire bowl. So maybe what you want to do is just do like a V on the bowl. So you draw out your line and you just carve within that little area and then just paint that little area. If that's what you want to do it. I like to do spirals, so I would probably end up putting a spiral around here and then maybe dimpling one or two of the spirals the whole way around, or alternate the spirals that I dimple just for something different. That's what I like to do. So if you were going to use a saber tooth piece on this, let me show you the difference. So this is about the same size as the cut saw round nose, and I'll show you the difference. And I don't know if you can pick this up on camera or not. Which way am I going here?
Above the head.
Hold it right there.
Oh, right there. So if you can pick it up on camera, the saber tooth bits here, I have my pencil right here. If you take a look at these, you see these grooves right here. In almost every piece, there's some really deep grooves. Where in the cut saw, the grooves are still there, but they're very shallow. They're not as defined as a saber tooth because the saber tooth carbide extends out a lot more, so you're going to have the grooves a little bit deeper. If you like that, use it. I don't. I'd rather use the cut saw ones. But some people will use a saber tooth because they like those lines. Hey, whatever you want to do, doesn't matter.
Dave, do any of the tools get clogged up with a softer wood?
Yes. So saber tooth bits will get.
A question for Zoomland.
Oh, do the bits ever get clogged up with soft wood? Don't use wet wood when you're doing embellishment because any tool you use is going to get clogged up. There are certain woods, like if you use willow will clog everything. There are some other woods. I don't use pine or spruce or anything like that because of the sap. There are some woods that saber tooth doesn't clog as much because of the pattern of the carbide. Cut saw does clog up. One of the ways you want to clean a cut saw bit, the easiest way, take them over a gas fire, like your burner at home. Just hold them over with pliers, not with your fingers. That's not going to kill the carbide because it's much higher temperature when they put it on. But just burn off the wood and then get a small little brass brush and just brush it out. And you can even do that without burning it. I mean, a lot of the wood will come out if you just brush it out. There are some woods, like I found that walnut sometimes will clog it up a little bit more. Box elder clogs it up a little bit more. But like maple doesn't as much. Sycamore doesn't as much because of the way the grain in wood is. Any wet wood will clog it up. Saber tooth will clog, but not as often as the cut saws.
Hey Dave,
Yeah,
I use a little torch, like a creme brulee type torch.
that'll work too. Yeah.
So it's not at risk with a propane type to be too hot.
No, you can,
Just don't leave it in there for
you can
hours.
even use
Yeah.
MAP gas.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
If you wanted to embellish, you can also use one of these rasps and embellish. It's a little more tricky because you really need a pattern, but you can just take your rasp and draw it along and draw a bunch of lines. Not as clean as the bits, but it does give you some difference in your bowls. And if you do it, you might end up liking the chaos pattern that it creates. So this would be something really interesting if you did it. And I'm just using the side to get a really thin little area. But then if you painted over top of it, it would probably look pretty cool. I've never done it. I have to try it out and see what it does, but it gives me an idea. But that's what you do when you're embellishing. You just want to try any tool that you have. These are the tools that I like to use, but if you have, you can even embellish with sandpaper. Get like 40 grit and just boom, 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 boom all the way around and get big circles.
That's what your stuff looks like, Vic.
But yeah, that's the nice thing is, I mean, what you're going for is you're going for something different, and the biggest thing is texture. Because when people pick it up and they feel texture, to them it feels different than just a wooden bowl. People like it because they buy it just because it feels cool. You know, and that's what people like when they pick bowls up and they feel different things. So those are just...
Are you going to mention cup cutters at some point?
I wasn't going to mention those.
Oh, I didn't know, because that's one of my favorite concave cup cutters. They leave a burn mark and you get different sizes and put them on a die grinder.
Both cut saw and saber tooth make bigger bits than this. So they make bits that are maybe an inch, inch and a half wide, and they have a 1/4 inch shank instead of a 1/8 inch shank. And you would use a die grinder or another tool that can hold them. And I have a series of items I'm going to come out with, and I'm going to use those tools for, where I'm going to be making leaves of trees, and I'm going to be making bowls based on the shape of the leaf. And then I'll be using those bigger tools to do that. So it's going to be more of a power carve than an embellishment, but you could use those tools as well. You know, it's a form of changing your wood. Whatever tool that you have that you want to play with, feel free to change it. I had someone that took a hammer and just beat their bowl with a hammer, and it gave a little bit of a dimpling effect, and they liked it. So
I think what Jim was talking about is their
Cup burrs.
cup. They're hollow. And basically, you're burning a hemisphere.
So like for eyeballs?
They're jewelers.
Yes.
Yeah, for eyeballs, yeah.
They're a jeweler's tool.
Yeah, it's another tool you can use. I mean, there's a lot of different things that you can use.
Gun carvers.
There's a lot of wood carvers too that will just get bowls from me just so they could hand carve the bowls. So like I said, just getting a simple set of wood carving tools and just doing chip carving, little chip carving along the outside is a form of embellishment. That's not for me. I do wood carving, but that's a little too tedious for me. I can't make people either. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you.
Sorry, Dave.
Yeah.
Your basket weave.
Yes.
Did you use drill bits to get through that? You weren't using cut saw for that, right?
No, for this piece, I made the vase and then I hollowed it out, and I used a drill bit to drill the holes for where the squares go. I used cut saw bits to get out most of the wood, and then I hand carved the edges of everything so it would be square. Because these tools don't leave a square edge. They leave a round edge, no matter what you pick. So then I had a knife, and I'm actually sitting here carving every corner to try and get it as square as I could. And then I did use, I used saber tooth bits. So I used this rotary tool from Saber Tooth, to make these edges along all the pieces because it makes a nice square edge. And then I use cut saw bits to flatten the edges from here to the center on both sides. And then a lot of sanding after that. So it took a long time. That's why I don't know if I'm going to make another one. We'll see.
When you say a long time,
3 months.
3 months?
Yeah. So I initially had set 3 weeks to do it because I had a carving show that I go to in Millersville in March. So I started the piece in January thinking I would have time to do more. I didn't get it done until the weekend right before the show. I just ran out of time, and you can only do so much with it. So, all right. What I want to do is, hope I don't go too long. So, what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about laying out a design using your lathe and indexing on your lathe.
So before we get to that, can you give us a ballpark of what would a kit cost to get to a starting point from nothing?
Sure. Each of these saber tooth bits are roughly $18 to $20, I would think. Cut saw bits are around $15 to $16, depending on the size that you want. They do sell kits that have like 3 or 4 of them together for $50 or $60, but then you get 4 bits. The only thing I caution about buying a kit is make sure that you can use all the burrs in the kit.
Sorry, I meant kit like a complete set of the tools.
Oh, a
everything,
complete
like,
set?
Hundreds of dollars.
Yeah, I mean, you're
like,
talking...
not just the bits, but like the tool and the Dremel.
The
and
Dremels,
flex shaft and
I think I bought that Dremel for like $60. It might have been on sale somewhere and I found it and I just bought it. The rotary shaft is another $30 to $40. And then each of these bits, these are probably $400 worth of bits here.
Okay.
So, but it depends if you buy both sets. Like, you could just buy one set and not buy the other tool.
Okay.
And then they run specials on these sometimes where you can get them cheaper.
Okay.
And then, like I said, I have a 10% off on cut saw I can give you guys at the end if you wanted to buy anything. If you know any old wood carvers that are getting out of the business, before they sell their tools, see if they have these and you could buy it from them. Because a lot of wood carvers will use this to refine their pieces, so they're not heavily used, and they'll sell them to you like dirt cheap just to get rid of them. So,
I mean, there's people older than us.
yeah, there are. I'm like the youngest person in the wood carving group that I go
When you
to.
get to heaven, buy the cut saw.
Dave, are you gonna turn the lathe on?
I am not going to turn the lathe on, no. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you and show you guys how I do a layout for spiraling or other design. So this is a piece of box elder. I had hollowed this out. What I plan on doing this is making spirals around this piece, and then I'm going to be using it as a very expensive pencil holder. So I'll be selling it at a show, or I'll put it up for auction for someone to go ahead and make money off of it. So what you want to do is anytime you're trying to lay out a pattern, especially trying to do a spiral, if your lathe has an indexing area, you want to make sure that you use it. I think almost every modern lathe has one, unless it's maybe Harbor Freight doesn't do it. This one, you'll notice this tool doesn't keep it perfect. So when you're doing this, you always want to pull forward or pull backwards, just to make sure that you are pulling in the same direction each time. Because if you don't, then one line will be a little bit different width than the other one. And then with a flat tool rest, you just take a pencil and you just run a line along the piece. And then you go to the next index, or you could skip an index and do one every 2. And then you want to do your next line all the way around.
Well, he's just using a threaded pull, because we probably
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have an indexing pin. I didn't see it.
yeah. We all gotta donate so we can get a pin. Use the index.
Pass one of your
$5 a
documents
piece.
around.
We'll auction off one of those pieces.
Okay, and then once you made it around, I didn't count how many there were. There's probably an even number. You can number them to make sure. Okay. The first tip is if you're doing any spirals or design, it has to be an even number of lines. If it isn't, nothing's going to come out the way it's supposed to. If these lines are too far away for you, you can, if there's another index, or just manually draw a line right down the middle and give yourself more lines to use, but we're going to play with the ones that we have here. So when you have your lines going that way, you want to draw your lines going the opposite way. And you use a flexible so you can put it right against the piece, and you can decide what your increments are going this way. For this piece, I'm going to do every 1/2 inch. So I'm going to start at the end and then just draw a line every 1/2 inch. And then you might have a little extra at the bottom, and you could just kind of fudge it to get the line that you want at the end, because you're not going to be able to be perfect. Once you have this, take your pencil on that line and then spin this piece around to put that line the whole way around your piece. And the bug holes in box elder are not great for this. So what we're doing is we're creating a grid to draw out everything that we're going to be doing to make sure it's consistent. Then once you have the grid, that's the hard part. So the rest of it is just figuring out what you want your design to be. So for spirals, what I usually do is I will go from the corner of one of the bottoms and then maybe go to the corner of the next one, or I'll skip that one and do this corner to this corner, depending on the size of the spiral and the way that I want it to swoop. So in this case, we're going to skip the one and we're going to go from this line to this line. Now this line doesn't have to be perfect. These are just guides. And then you're going to go from this line and you're going to skip one and go up to this line.
And this is all just straight line.
Just a straight line.
Hey Dave,
Yeah?
can you adjust that light to your right to maybe brighten up what you're doing?
Is that better?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So again, what I'm doing is I'm just drawing, oh yeah, you can see the lines better. So that's just what one spiral will look like. If you don't like it, you can erase it or, you know, put sandpaper over it and then do the whole thing over. Or you can just manually just cross it out and then put a new line in. So then what we're going to do is we're going to skip to the next corner and we're going to do the exact same thing because we want these spirals to be consistent. If you just want to do a couple spirals, you don't have to do the whole thing. You can skip whatever you want as long as you are even with it or whatever you want your design to be.
I create my spirals with a skew.
That's brilliant.
I need a t-shirt that says that.
Barry made it cheap. It's a good chaser.
We need some filler music. I said we need some filler music. DC. Yeah, bro. Movie is crickets.
That line's hidden, so let me figure out. And then when you have all of your lines drawn, what you're going to do is you're going to figure out, do you follow the line and carve the line out, or do you carve out what's in between the lines? I carve out what's in between the lines, because that way you get a nice crisp edge. If you're doing the line, then you don't really know where the edges are going to be here. And the first time I did this, I followed the line because I thought that's what we did. That was wrong. So you go in between the lines. Now again, if these spirals are too big for you, you could draw more lines and get tighter spirals. So you could end up having spirals that are this wide, or you could end spirals that are this wide. It really depends on how much time you want to take to do this, because this takes a lot longer than doing something like this. But I think this looks kind of nice on the wood. It might not have worked as well with this piece of wood. So I like to show a little bit more of the red in a tight spiral. That's just me. And then what you would do is you would take your tools, and then you would just use like the round tool, and you would carve out the inside here first. I'm not going to do that because that creates way too much dust. And then the only thing you have to remember is how deep are you going to make your spirals. So this piece is probably 1/3 of an inch thick. So I want to make sure that when I'm doing this, I don't go too deep or I'll go through the piece. Maybe I want to go through the piece. You could do that too. So I have some pieces where I carved the entire wood out and then just left the wood on the line and across the top. So it's an open spiral around the whole piece. Those are things that you can experiment with and figure out what you want to do. I will use a saber tooth bit to start out with to get most of this wood out. And then when I get most of the wood out, I'll go back with the cut saw bits and slowly work my way up to the lines. And then again, these lines are guides. So you're going to end up sanding. You're going to smooth out that edge to that nice crisp edge that you want. Or if you don't want it crisp, keep it on the lathe and sand it so it has a nice flat top to it. It really is based on what you want to do. Or just carve out a little bit. Maybe you want to paint one line, skip one line, paint one line, skip one line, paint one line. Or carve one line and then maybe use the dots on another line, carve another line, dots on another line. Or if you wanted to, you could carve along this line and then do a different type of embellishment in every spiral that you have. It's really up to you. And doing a piece like this is really easy to experiment with all the tools that you have. Even if you don't do spirals, if you just do these lines going across, try one type of embellishment in that line, and then go to this line and try another type of embellishment, and then another one on this line, and figure out what you like. And then you're just really ruining one piece. But it's scrap. I mean, half the stuff we do, it's all test anyway, so. I think that is pretty much it. Oh, other tips and tricks I have for you guys. Always practice before going live on a piece to understand how your tool works. If you've never used a saber tooth bit or a cut saw bit, there is a little bit of a learning curve. Because if you hold it wrong, it will skip across your wood. You have to have the right feel and the right angle putting that bit into the piece. The only way you can figure that out is just by practicing on just get a piece of plank or something and just hit it with it and just feel what it does. Feel what happens if you hold it there a little bit too long. What happens if you just do light touches? You know, wood grain really matters. With this piece, I'm going into end grain, so all the grain is going this way. So I know how I'm going to be able to carve this piece because I've done enough of them. If this is a piece where the end grain is this way, it's going to carve a little bit different because the wood grain is going different. Wood hardness will also matter. If you have a piece of hard maple, it's going to burn a lot quicker than like a box elder or even a walnut. And then some walnuts, depending on the figure that's in the walnut, it will burn or it will skip the piece just based on how the grain pattern is and the hardness of that wood. I've had some walnut which is like as soft as box elder, and they carve great. And I have other walnut that's as hard maple, and it doesn't carve so great. The only way you're going to know is if you do a practice. And then your concept for embellishment really matters. You know, really think about it before you do it. Because what you don't want to do is start a piece and you're like, yeah, it didn't turn out quite what I wanted. But like think about it and really like sketch it out. If you are really good with computers, you can go to AI and say, show me a wood bowl with a raised rim. And it will show you a concept of what that piece might look like. Maybe that'll help you think about what your end piece will look like at the end. And then if you like burned look, keep your tool there a little bit long and it will burn the wood. If you don't like burnt wood look, don't hold your piece there long. And it really depends on what you want. You can get away with burnt wood a lot on like walnut and some other darker woods. It's not going to show up as much. But on the maple, box elder, lighter woods like that, it'll show up a little bit easier. So you just have to figure out what you want to do with your piece and how you want it to look at the end. Then the last thing I have is, if you wanted to go to cut saw and order any of the bits, I will pass this around, but I'll also put it here for the people who are online. If they want to write the discount code down, you could do that. But if you guys want a discount code, I have one here for cut saw. So you guys can pass those out. And that'll give you 10% off any cut saw tool. There you go.
That's good.
So if you go to that link, that'll give you the 10% discount right away. And if you want to find me, I just search for I Make Bowls. That's me. So, do you guys have any questions? Hopefully I didn't take too long, or hopefully I went long enough.
Dave, what was your Facebook page?
It's just facebook.com/IMakeBowls.
That's yours, but the site you said Woodturners has the ads with you in it?
If you go to Facebook or Instagram and you follow any other woodturners, most likely you will see ads of me popping up on your Facebook. Yeah. Cutsaw just runs them. Usually after 8 o'clock at night, they don't run them because people are older and they're in bed. That's what they told me. So.
So,
Make spindles.
Yeah.
when you talk about this embellishment stuff, you said embellishment adds value to your pieces.
Yes.
Does it add in proportion to the amount of effort you did for embellishment?
That is dependent on how you price your piece.
I know.
So like this piece, just as an example, if I was going to sell this bowl, and again, this is my price, it doesn't mean it's your price. If I was going to sell this bowl without embellishment, I'd probably sell it for like 30 bucks. With embellishment, they're going to buy it for 65. Sight unseen. They just saw a picture of it and they said, we'll buy it. And I told them what the price was. They're like, fine. So the next 5 I'm going to sell are going to be 65. Around the same size. It didn't take a whole lot of time to do this. It may have taken 30 minutes to do the entire piece. So it really only added another half an hour. And I wanted to see if I could sell it for that price, and the price seemed good. Is it too low? Maybe. Do I care? No. Because I don't have to take it home and put it on my shelf. So, and it pays for sandpaper and it pays for other things. So
when you embellish, do you always finish it? Sometimes finish it? What's your...
I will always finish it in some way after I embellish it, unless I'm going to paint it. If I know I'm going to paint it, I'll wait and I'll paint all my pieces at the same time. Most of my pieces, like if it's just a bump pattern like that, I will just use like an oil finish on the outside or a waterlox finish. If it's going to be painted, I will write down like on a piece of paper underneath it, black rim, because I'll forget when I go to do it 3 months from now, and I might say, oh, what color was I going to paint that? I don't know. So, but it also depends. Like if someone's going to buy it, they may want it in blue to match their kitchen, or they may want it in red, so I can have that flexibility of doing whatever I want with it. Any other questions?
Susan.
You're welcome.
Thank you.